Right, solving multi-step inequalities. So hopefully you've looked at the first video that went over 1 and 2-step inequalities. All right, so we're going to continue on with some of the rules that we discussed. So the first step we're going to do is distribute. So I'm going to bring down 30 minus 6a, bring down my inequality. Now we're going to distribute, so that's negative 15, and that makes negative 21a. Now we're going to move our variables to one side. I'm going to move that 21 by adding it so that I get a positive variable coefficient, and also some of my variables on the left side. That's just optional. You can move it the negative 6a by adding it, but I'm going to move the 21 instead. So that brings down the 30. Now I have 15a. Bring down the inequality and bring down negative 15. I move the 30 over to the other side to be with the negative 15. So that's my zero pair. Bring down 15a, bring down my inequality, and I get negative 45. And then we're going to divide by 15. So that's 1a or a. And then we have our inequality sign. I did not reverse my inequality sign because I did not divide by negative. So if you notice, this is a positive 15. If that was a negative 15, I would reverse that inequality, but it is not. Therefore, I do not flip my inequality sign. So I just get negative 3. So I'm going to add negative 3. I would have an open dot, and I'd be going to the left. If you had done it the other way around and moved the 6 instead, your answer would have looked something like this. And again, that's the same answer because negative 3 is still larger on both answers. So either way is fine. Okay, let's try the next one. Okay, so this one says we're going to write an inequality that represents all values for x for y is less than 5x minus 7, parentheses x plus 1, and a parentheses when y is equal to negative 9. So if you notice, they gave me the y value, so we're going to replace it with the value they gave us of negative 9. X plus 1. Okay, so we're going to first start with distributive. So I'm going to bring down negative 9 and the 5x. That gives me negative 7x, and that gives me negative 7. So I can go ahead and add my 7 to both sides. So that gives me negative 2. I can also combine my like terms with negative 2x. I divide by negative 2 on both sides. And if you recall that rule, we are dividing by a negative sign. So when we divide by the negative sign, you have to recall that we switch or reverse our inequality sign, and then that becomes a positive 1. So if you had done it any other way, you could have also written it like x is less than 1. So we have an open dot at 1, and that's going to be going towards the left. Okay, and then we have number 3, or the next one, excuse me, the third example that we're doing. All right, so we're going to distributive property first. So that's going to give me negative 3p. That would give me negative 3, bring down my inequality sign, and negative 18. Okay, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So that's my zero pair, bring down negative 3p, bring down my inequality sign, and that gives me negative 15. I'm ready to divide by negative 3. Divide both sides by negative 3 to get my p isolated. But I divided by a negative, I need to reverse my inequality sign, and that gives me positive 5. So if I were to graph that, would it be a positive 5 with a solid dot because it's equal to, and all those numbers are to the right. Okay. So let's try the next one. Bring down negative 33 minus n and their inequality sign of less than or equal to. Now it's distributive properties. So that gives me negative 6n and negative 3. Now I'm ready to get my variables together. So I'm going to add 6n to both sides so I can have my variable on the left. So that gives me 5n. Bring down the negative 33. This was a positive 5n, so I could put a plus and bring down my minus 3. I'm going to add 33 to both sides to get my constants together. That gives me 5n is less than or equal to, and that gives me positive 30. I'm going to divide to isolate my variable. I divided by a positive, so I do not flip my inequality sign, and that gives me 6. So that would be a solid dot at 6, and all those values are going to be to the left. Okay, next one, it says write an inequality that represents all values for x for y is greater than negative 3x minus 2x when y equals 5. So we're going to substitute in our value for y, which they gave us is 5, and bring down negative 3x minus 2x. So these have like terms, so those can be combined. So we got 5 is greater than negative 5x. Now we're ready to divide by negative 5. So we divided by a negative. So remember, you have to reverse your inequality sign. So now it's going to become negative 1 is less than x. If I wanted to write it x is greater than negative 1, you could. That's going to be an open dot, excuse me, that's open, and that's going to be going to the right from negative 1. Okay, let's do a couple more. Distributive property first, that's 3p minus 9 equals negative 5p is greater than negative 3p minus 6. Okay, so we have some like terms on the same side. So I have 3p and negative 5p. Those are like terms. I don't do the inverse operation. I just combine those terms to negative 2p and bring the rest of the inequality down. So now I'm going to go ahead and add 3p to both sides. That gives me 1p, or just simply p. Now I'm going to add 9 to both sides to get my 9 to the opposite side. And that will give me 3. So at 3, I have an open dot, and that's going to the right for those values to be true. Okay, I'll do one more. Okay, so we have some distributive properties, so I'm going to end up doing that first. So I bring down negative 5n plus 6. Bring down my inequality greater than or equal to. That gives me negative 35n plus 42, because negative times the negative, and bring down negative 6n. Okay, so I need to go ahead and I'm going to actually on the right, since I have two things, I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms, and then I'll start moving things over to the opposite sides. Bring down negative 5n plus 6 is greater than or equal to, and I'm going to combine those to get negative 41n plus 42. Now I'm ready to move my constants and variables together. So that will give me positive 41n. Okay, so that's going to give me 36n. Oops, excuse me, that I did not mean to switch that inequality sign. 42. I'm going to subtract 6. So that gives me 36n is greater than or equal to, and that would give me 36. Divide both sides by 36. So n is greater than or equal to 1. That's a solid dot at 1, and that's going to be going to the right. All those values are true. All right, so hopefully that gives you some examples of solving multi-step inequalities.